Hello there, and welcome along to episode 4 and season 4 of the Gardener Ben podcast, which is brought to you proudly in association with Peterbilt's Roses, winner of 30 Chelsea Gold medals and creating timeless roses since 1968. Go online and shop at www.peterbiltsroses.com. This week, I have had the pleasure of having my first ever day on a build team at the Chelsea Flower Show. I was invited along to the Peterbilt's stand in the Grand Pavilion to assist the company in producing one of their largest displays ever. I went up just a few days ago, and to say I had an awful lot of fun was an understatement. Watching the team at work place quite literally thousands of roses to create their beautiful floral display was an absolute marvel. Also, getting to walk around the show and have a bit of a sneaky peek about what everybody else is up to ahead of press day this coming Monday was an absolute pleasure. The show was quite literally abuzz with people, lots and lots of activity, and the finishing touches starting to be made. As the whole world quite literally holds its breath ahead of the launch of the show this Monday, I have the pleasure in bringing you today a conversation with Gwen, who is the CEO of Plant Heritage, who are responsible for coordinating and looking after the plant collections here in the UK. And for the very first time in 2026, Plant Heritage, along with the Planting Design Collective, will actually be showcasing a garden at the Chelsea Flower Show, which I very much look forward to visiting. The Plant Design Collective is made up of Kate Campbell, Sally Ann Rees and William Murray, and they're producing a garden called the Missing Collector's Garden, which I'm very much looking forward to experiencing. Ahead of this year's Chelsea Flower Show, I caught up with Gwen just a few weeks ago, and I really hope that you enjoy the conversation that follows. Now, today on the Gardener Ben podcast, I'm joined by Gwen, who is the CEO of Plant Heritage. Gwen, welcome along to the Gardener Ben podcast. How are you?
I'm really well. Thank you very much for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. I was really grateful when your team reached out and said, I was wondering whether you could join me on the podcast, because I don't know a great deal about Plant Heritage and what Plant Heritage does. So could you just quickly explain to the audience that are listening what Plant Heritage is all about?
Sure. So we are the home of the National Plant Collections, and probably like many people like me before I joined the charity, you might have seen on Gardeners World TV or heard about people who hold a national collection, and that's a group of plants they commit to look after. They care for them, share them, record information about them, and keep them safe for the future.
Okay.
So we're a conservation charity, and that's really our flagship conservation scheme. But we also have thousands of members, hundreds of volunteers. We have groups all over the UK who love plants, love gardening, get together to do garden visit, talks, workshops. And our charitable purpose, if you like, is to make sure that we are encouraging people to grow a real diversity of garden plants. And we're keeping these cultivated plants safe for the future so that future generations can enjoy them.
I suppose it must sound quite strange to a lot of gardeners that will be listening along that some plants are quite heavily at risk a lot of the time. Even something that's very, very popular and that we have in our gardens and we're in contact with almost on a daily basis can almost very quickly fall out of fashion and very quickly almost disappear out of commercial growing. And then before you know it, you're in a situation where things are actually sort of disappearing and we're shrinking plant species rather than increasing them. I'm assuming that's something that you're working with all the time.
It is, and I think there's a lot of focus on wild plants, and obviously keeping wild plants is really important. Keeping species is really important, and you've got things like the Millennium Seed Bank to do that.
Yes.
But the charity Plant Heritage was set up in the 70s because there was a real worry that all the cultivated plants, everything since the original species, so all the varieties of apples, the varieties of roses or dahlias, none of that was being kept safe. And like you say, we think it's really easy to look after that stuff, but actually, if you go to a garden centre, there's not that much variety.
No, we've focused very much on volume, haven't we? And sort of pumping. Yeah.
And just space. People only stock a small range. I mean, even we're doing a Chelsea garden, and we can come back to that. But talking to lots of designers designers, they talk about their nifty 50 that they kind of use. And yet, we've got this incredible diversity of plants in our gardens.
Yeah.
And, the work we've done shows that more than half those cultivated plants, you can't even buy them anymore, which just means that if we aren't looking after them in our gardens, they could disappear forever, which is really sad, I think, because you just lose all that history, all that beauty.
Very much so. And it's funny that you should touch on the nifty 50, because again, if I see catmint and alliums once more, I think I'm going to go crazy. It's don't get me wrong, they have their place and they're lovely. And I understand why specifically at Chelsea they're used so heavily, because obviously very early on in the season you want that look. But yeah, it's there is a huge catalogue of different things. And it's really interesting you touched on apples there as well, because I've got some first-hand experience about apples, because obviously a lot of people won't realise that when the UK dug for England, a huge amount of apple orchards were lost. I worked at a very large Victorian estate with a very, very large walled garden. They had a vast orchard, which during the Second World War, unfortunately, an awful lot of was lost. They turned that into areas where they could grow fruit and veg, quicker succession crops, not so much like things that one crop of a year, but cauliflowers and potatoes, that kind of thing. And at the end of the Second World War, there was still quite a lot of apple trees in place, but unfortunately, in all the confusion that happened, 90% of them had lost their labels. So nobody, unfortunately, knew what on earth there was. And of course, then they fell into disrepair, and then some of them had to be removed. And they had a vast collection of apples. It then took someone very, very, very knowledgeable, and again, these people are very few and far between these days. I class myself not so much with apples, but as a very, very widely educated horticulturist. We are dying at a vast rate of knots. We're all getting to a certain sort of age, and we're not imparting our knowledge on. So I've experienced that problem with apples firsthand, and I actually was, as a student working on this estate, started. I couldn't catalogue things, but I did try and store them because they had stopped storing apples traditionally. They just used to let the pigs in from a local farmer that used to sort of go to run amok and eat everything. But I actually started storing apples, so I'm very aware that happens quite regularly. So with things like apples, I mean, in the UK, again, our apple production has massively dropped over the last 60, 70 years, and these aren't things that just sort of turn up randomly. They take a long time to grow and develop. So it's great.
And I think what's really interesting is the link between the past and the future. So actually, as you probably know, there's a lot of research now into historical varieties of apples to try and find some which are more resilient for the future because of climate change. So we've got 20 different national plant collections of apples held by groups across the UK. And that's everywhere from the Royal Horticultural Society garden in Rosemore in Devon to Gloucester Orchards Trust has got a local orchard hosting Gloucestershire varieties of apples. And it's trying to bring more of those historical varieties back, and so make sure we look after them and they can be researched. So as you say, it's that history and the stories, but it's also the potential for the future.
Just going to say, because I'm assuming that then ties in very nicely to the fact that you were talking about, obviously we've homed in on apples because I mentioned them, but it's the same, I suppose, with any group of plants, isn't it? That the more we focus in on fewer varieties in larger quantities, we actually, unfortunately, open ourselves up to pest and disease problem that might wipe out an entire bank of something. And before you know, we actually haven't got any diversity left in what we're growing, and it has no resilience to whatever may pop up in the future. I believe they've got that problem with oranges over in the United States at the moment, if I'm not right in pulling something out that I've seen about a huge failure of orange crops. But I believe that's sort of the problem they're having over there at the moment, that they've focused their attention on maybe two different croppings of types of orange, and now there's something that's wiping out vast quantities of them, and they don't know really what to do. It's a bit of a problem.
Yeah, and as you say, it's that resilience, it's the diversity, which obviously is good for biodiversity in terms of kind of looking after these varieties. I think what's also really interesting in the UK is because of the history of collecting plants from around the world. We've got plants growing in the UK that are actually now extinct in the wild. Something like Brugmansia, Angel's Trumpet, really beautiful, tender plant. And you've got botanic gardens like Kew that have them and they look after them. But you've also got
I have one in my greenhouse right now.
Well, there you go. Excellent. But there's also a national collection of Brugmansia looked after by an individual. And that's what I really love at Plant Heritage is it's this network of individuals as volunteers who are doing this really important conservation work for the future that benefits all of us.
Okay, so I mean, I must ask, while I was at Horticultural College, while I was at Sparshall, we used to look after the National Collection of Helianthemums. So would that have been governed by Plant Heritage?
That's right. Yep. And so we are the charity behind the national collections.
Okay.
And so it's a very small charity. There's only 9 staff. Most of them are part time, but everybody else is a volunteer. And part of the reason we're doing a Chelsea Garden is to try and get the charity better known, because the national collections are quite well known and loved. But we want to make sure people understand the charity behind the national collections, so that they can get involved, so they can support our work.
So I suppose it's almost, you've got I need to be diplomatic with the way I say this, but I suppose there are the stars of what people would see to be the stars of the national collections. I'm going to home in on roses because it gets a huge amount of attention, and
Sure.
the audience listening will know exactly where the national collection is held. But there are, as you explained, you said that you have was it 20 or 200 collections of apples? I mean,
20, yeah.
Just if you start breaking them down into every single bits of it, there must be people all over the country holding really, really important banks of plant matter.
Yeah, they really are. I mean, we call it a living library because it is.
Yes.
It's living examples of all these plants.
A lovely way of putting it.
We've now got 100,000 plants in the different national collections. There are more than 740 collections, and I joke they are everywhere from palaces to prisons. So the king's got 4 at his different palaces. He's got beech trees at Highgrove because nobody else has got room for a beech tree national collection. He has,
and they are splendid. I've seen them. They're
really
resplendent.
special. But then there's also 2 now in a women's prison in Gloucester. They've got Agastachi and Tulbagia. We've got a second prison that's now getting involved. But they are, the National Collection of Allium, held by Jackie Curry, is on her allotment. Some of them are house plants. Some of them are in schools. So, and you said with roses, you can have more than one national collection of a particular plant. And again, that's something we're deliberately trying to encourage as a backup because of climate change.
Yes, of
course.
Because
if you lose them, if you lose plants in storms because of diseases or whatever, it's great if we've got more than one. So there's lots of different ways to do it.
It's really interesting that you mentioned that, actually, because I saw Alan Titchmarsh on a little bit for the RHS a couple of days ago, and there were 3 points he was bringing to attention, but it was planting a tapestry of a garden to make sure that you had as many different plant species as at all possible. And his emphasis was on inviting pollinators to the garden, but he didn't want the people listening to actually focus exclusively on wild and native flowers. Actually, forage is forage as far as a bee or a hoverfly is concerned. And the more variation that you plant, the more likely it is there's going to be something flowering at all times during the year. And as a result, you don't create a microclimate. I was speaking to, for goodness me, I need to dredge his name out of my head now. This is terrible. I'll go around to who is looking after the Royal National Parks.
Matt Pottage.
That's it. Yeah, I had him on series 2. He's an internet friend of mine, and I'm sorry, Matt, for completely blanking your name then. But he had a problem with the Queen, is it Mary or Queen Anne Rose Garden in London, that basically, because there was nothing but roses, unfortunately had become blighted and weak, and basically had to be completely removed and start all over again, because again this focus on just one species in a very, very small space creates basically a hotbed for pest and disease problems, and before you know it, you've got some real issues. So my garden here is a large expression of me. It's very untidy. My mind races, and it sees in all sorts of colours and textures. So my garden here is, it's and I'm a terrible collector. I've collected well over 350 varieties of rose in the last 10 years.
Wow.
I have over 120 houseplants, most of which are housed in one room. I collect succulents.
That's fun, isn't it? It's fun and it's beautiful. I mean, I live in outer London, so I don't have very big garden, and so for me as well, I've only really been into gardening about 5 years, but it's how many different plants can you get in that space? And I like to experiment with them, grow them. Once I've learned how to look after them and propagate them, it's kind of like, great, let's find something else I can add and share them with other people. And I think it's that addictiveness, isn't it, of plants?
It is, yeah. I mean, I have to be very disciplined with myself, that I make a very, very strict policy that I don't try and propagate anything. It's not that I can't I can propagate virtually anything, and I do, but I have to be very disciplined about it, because otherwise things get very out of hand very quickly. You can't shop like I do for plants and propagate because there's simply not enough room for it all. We're
You could
faced.
propagate them through our plant fairs. We'd love it, Ben. You could give us some.
So, if you wouldn't mind, Gwen, if someone had, for instance, we've talked about the passion behind plants, and I tell my subscribers and followers all over the world every single week when I speak to them that I like people to grow what excites them. I really
Mm,
do. And when I'm in front of a rose, reviewing roses as I do, I know that I'm doing the right thing. Or I know
mm,
if my face lights up from ear to ear, and I might pull a characteristic from the plant that most people will pass by, whether it's the way the bud opens or whether foliage flushes different colours, whatever it might be, I know that I'm in the right place and doing the right thing. So if someone has a collection of, pick something out there, pick it, of bromeliads, for instance, there's probably a national collection. But if someone had a collection like that, how would they go about finding out whether there is a national collection of that, and whether they could actually register their collection of plants with you?
So definitely, there's the best thing is just get in touch with us because, like you say, it's a passion for the plants that matters more than anything. And you don't
Hmm.
have to have a ready-made collection. It can be that you've got an intention to start a collection and you've
Okay.
just got a few, but you want to grow that. Go to our website, go to social media. You'll find contact points on those and get in touch. There's a bit
Hmm.
more information. You can search the current national collections on the website. But like I say, even if there is already a collection, you could have a duplicate collection. You could have a second one.
Yeah.
People think you have to have every single thing. Well, apart from you, you might not want every single rose there is. I'm sure you would. But you might just want to have a subset of roses. So you could have Persica roses like Daniel
Hmm.
Myhill's got, or you could have,
Indeed. Yes. Yeah.
a particular type of rose. So you can do a particular subset of plants, but you can also have a mix of plants if it's associated with a particular place. So Hampton Court Palace, which is quite well known, has got a really weird and wonderful collection of Queen Mary's exotics plants.
Hmm.
So there are a wide range of different plants. We're looking for somebody at the moment to do a national collection of plants associated with Gertrude Jekyll. So they
Okay.
could
Yes.
be plants named after her. They could be ones that she bred. They could be associated with Munsard Wood, her home. So there's lots of different ways to do it because, across all the different national collections, we want to try and have as many as possible of those different cultivated plants.
When we finished our conversation, I'm going to head over to the Plant Heritage website and I'm going to have a good scroll through those
Do
thousands and thousands of collections and see whether there's something that interests me, because that would be another rabbit hole that I could disappear down. You mentioned earlier when we first came online, Gwen, that the Plant Heritage is getting involved at Chelsea this year. So what are you up to at Chelsea? Because it's we're 3, maybe 4 weeks away.
It's coming up very, very soon. Yes.
I'm bracing myself for the wave. I can see the wave. I'm holding on tight.
I think there's a lot of people out there kind of doing rain dances at the moment, trying to get a bit of rain for the plants.
Don't tell anybody. My irrigation systems are on 24/7. They're flat out. I'm watering already.
No, it's a huge show, as the RHS Chelsea Flower Show, and people come from all over the world. So we normally do a stand as a charity to talk about our work as Plant Heritage, and we're doing that again. So in the Great Pavilion, we're doing a stand, and we've also got displays by different national collection holders. But for the first time ever, we're also doing a show garden,
Hmm.
and that's a really big deal for us as a small charity. So
Yeah.
just at the top of Main Avenue, we're doing what's called an Sorry, I just paused there so you can edit out maybe that.
That's okay. It's not a problem. So
Okay.
you said it just at the top of Main Avenue.
So at the top of Main Avenue, there's an area called the Triangle,
Hmm.
and on there will be our garden. It's called the Plant Heritage Missing Collector Garden.
Hmm.
And the idea is we're looking for our missing collectors to help us into the future by starting new collections, duplicating existing collections, or getting involved in other ways to support the charity.
Hmm.
We're working with a trio of designers called the Planting Design Collective.
Okay.
They haven't done a garden like this before at Chelsea, so it's a first for all of us.
Yeah.
We've got
And who
national collection holders
and
providing
and
plants.
and who are the garden designers you're working alongside?
So they're called William Murray, Kate Campbell, and Sally Ann Rees. So they set up as a trio called the Planting Design Collective. So they met just a few years ago when they were at a planting design course
Hmm.
in London, and they've done a board together at the Hampton Court Show. And William Murray has done a balcony for Chelsea, but it's their first show garden as well.
Goodness me, that's a bold move for everybody involved, isn't that? That's a great respect to all three of them. I mean, it must be. I'm struggling. I mean, I obviously will we seek out these three people and yourself on press day for Chelsea and come and say hello. But it must be incredibly challenging working as a trio. I hope. That's going to be interesting dynamic. I wonder if they break their workload down into separate tasks, or do they all do a little bit of everything?
I mean, we've been working together since probably late 2024 because we're lucky enough to be sponsored by Project Giving Back, and that was a whole process, kind of competing for their funding, getting their support. And I have to say, the three of them are amazing. I mean, they get on really, really well. They're all career changers into gardening.
Yeah.
So they bring. Sally's got legal background, Kate's got financial accountancy background, Will used to help design art galleries. So they really complement each other.
Wonderful, yeah.
And they're brilliant to work with. And I think probably for the three of them, actually, they say it helps spread the load because if one of them is not available, the other one is. And they're still working as gardeners, as designers, even in the run up to Chelsea. I mean, so everybody is really, really busy.
Goodness me, yeah.
But I mean, I should say our landscapers, we've got Rupert Rowett and Gareth Wilson, who are no strangers to Chelsea and have won loads and loads of awards. So I think we're in good hands with them as well.
Wonderful. So what if you wouldn't, are you able to talk about the concept about the garden? You said you having people bring certain parts of plant collections together. So what was the actual theme or the brief for the garden that you're creating?
Definitely. So it's the concept from the designers is, we've often run a missing collections campaign as Plant Heritage to get people to come forward, and that works to get people interested. But their point was it's also the collectors who are missing, so the people behind the plants. And so the whole concept is, are you the missing collector? So there's a beautiful sculpture of a chair right in the middle of the garden, and that itself is it's a bronze sculpture of a chair that's grown in a forest. By these brilliant artists called Full Grown, Gavin and Alice Munro. So everything about the garden is about plants and gardens and planting. So the idea is, could you be the missing collector? We've got stone pillars made out of sculptures of books from reclaimed stone. And the idea is that the knowledge that national collection holders have. And then there are museum style drawers. If you think about when you go to a museum as a kid and you open the drawers and there's kind of insects and treasures and dinosaur fossils and things. So they've got those drawers at the front and they're planted up with some really special plants. And if all goes well, one of them will also be a little water feature with some miniature water lilies in as well. So everything about it is trying to put the plants first and show that passion for plants that you talked about earlier.
Sounds like I'm going to love this installation, so I should certainly be
come along.
heading over to give that a good look. It's a really, really lovely thing. As I say, I'm assuming the concept with that bronze sculpture chair is actually to almost for the plant collector to sit in it and become part of the actual fabric of the garden and bring that knowledge and sit in the collection with the knowledge, with the plants. Yeah, sounds really, really lovely.
I think it's going to look really stunning. I mean, we're lucky enough that London Art Gallery called Sarah Myerscough have lent us the sculpture of the chair. And as I say, it's the original is wood. I mean, they grow these chairs over 10 years. I mean, it's insane, but also amazing. And so they've lent us this bronze cast, which is going to look really beautiful. And on press day, some people can sit in it, as long as we're really careful not to scratch it.
I wouldn't deem myself important enough to get onto an installation yet. Well, I'm fully aware that these things seem to be tiered. I mean, depending on the numbers. In the rose world, I'm fairly well respected, but on the wider,
I'm sure you are.
On the wider gardening community, I'm still very, very small. So yeah, I shall stand behind the rope and I shall look at it and admire it from afar. So how long has this project's taken you? So you started conversations back in 2024 to gain funding for this particular garden, and it's been going on since then, has it?
It has. It's a really long process of trying to get the funding because, as I say, we're a very small charity, so we couldn't do it ourselves. But Project Giving Back, you probably know, have been supporting gardens at Chelsea for the last 5 years. This is their last year. So it was quite competitive to get their support, but they've been brilliant to work with. They're really, really helpful. So Sally, Will and Kate phoned us up one day and said, hey, we're thinking about doing a garden. Are you interested? And I'd been thinking about it as well for the charity because it's a brilliant way to put plant conservation at the centre centre of Chelsea to do a garden like this. Even once we got the funding from Project Giving Back, we then had to apply to the RHS because there are more garden applications than you can have.
Of course they are, yeah, yeah.
And then, of course, you have to start finding all the plants, trees that look like they've been there forever. We've got some quite unusual trees, some unusual cercis, a staphylia, a few things people might not have seen at Chelsea before. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, there's all the building work, gathering all the plants. And yes, like I was saying, we've got collection holders providing some of the plants, but most of them are provided and being grown by How Green Nursery that you might know in Kent, which is a very strong sustainability focused nursery run by a family. So we're working with them, and we've had collection holders from all over the country providing plants. I collected some that have been dropped off that have come from Gloucestershire to our office near Wisley, and then I took them down to Kent. So it really is everybody getting involved. It's lovely.
That sounds like a terrifying thing to do. That's just sort of because you're not really. I'm not saying that you're not qualified, but if you pass them from one place to another, and you think, well, are they going to be happy? Are they going to get damaged in transport? It's a hotbed of I'm going to put that down. I'm going to back away from that.
It isn't, and some of these plants are more common. Some are really quite rare. Mm-hmm. There's some from Julian Reed who collects ferns, for example. He's been really generous lending us some really quite rare ferns for the garden, and those one you have to be so careful with. There's certainly a real pressure. And then, as you might know, the day after Chelsea Garden, the day after Chelsea, everything's dismantled really quickly.
Yes.
So there's quite a long list and a lot of very careful labelling to make sure we get them back to the right place.
Mm-hmm. I have to be a bit careful with what I say here, because I don't mean any shade, but I will never understand why the collapsing of the shows has to be done quite so quickly. Well, it's the same whether it's BBC Gardeners World Live or Malvern Hills or whatever it may be. There's always a lovely sort of week, 10 days you're allowed onto site, and you're allowed to design, build and get everything in. And then you've got 24 hours to get everything back out again. When everybody is focused on the sustainability and the recycling and the reusable ability of everything. And let's face it, the longer period of time you have to take things apart properly and strip them down properly and then distribute them to where they need to go, the more likely it is they're going to get used. They're going to be in a decent quality or fashion to be actually used again and repurposed. So yeah, it does puzzle me, the reason why everybody's expected to sort of, the show closes and you've got to get out really, really quickly. But I know they need to get the sites back to its condition, but I don't know why it does have to be quite so quick. I will never understand that.
And you're right. It's also when everybody's really tired. I did my first Chelsea last year with a stand in the pavilion, and you build it, and then it's press sale and it opens, and you're shattered by the end of the week. But we're really lucky because most things in the garden are reclaimed. So the stone is reclaimed. We're working with Grosvenor Timberworks, who are providing all the wood, and that's all from their own sustainable forests. Mm-hmm. And then after Chelsea, our garden is going to Chester Zoo, which is a bit of a surprise. To people, but actually they are a botanic garden as well as a zoo. They already have 5 national collections, and they do brilliant work with about 120,000 kids every year, teaching them about conservation. So everything from the garden will be either taken back to collection holders or go up to Chester. They're going to look after it. They've got a brilliant garden team led by Phil Essen. They're going to look after it over the summer and then rebuild it in the autumn. So for us, it's going to be really sustainable.
Lovely. It's a similar situation to this time last year. Actually, I bumped into a local garden designer here on the south coast called David Long, and he installed a garden at BBC Gardeners World Live, which was basically a very large stage with a very, very decorative. I'm doing this with my arms. People can't hear me what I'm doing, but you can see what I'm doing.
I can see.
It's a stage with sort of arms coming over the top of it, and it was encouraging people to take centre stage and actually use their garden as a stage and actually enjoy the plants, very much like your concept with the plants being very much at the forefront, and they were the audience watching from looking at this stage. And that was actually completely uninstalled very, very quickly, and is installed at a local primary school. And the children now use it to perform on and use during their lunch breaks. So that's really nice. So it's really, really lovely that you've thought about the stages, because it is really important, because we all go to, and we don't all go, but thousands of us go to Chelsea, millions of us watch it on the telly, and you look at these wonderful concepts and these enormous counterleaved sort of bits of concrete and stone, you think, goodness me, where are these going off to afterwards? I mean, it's a large amount of work to get, even get them into place in the first place, let alone take them down and move them somewhere else. So it's lovely that you've thought about the steps moving forward and where the garden's going to go afterwards. That sounds really nice.
Well, then credit to Project Giving Back and the RHS. Actually, they've really emphasised that throughout the whole process, and I think that's great. That it's, as you say, it's a crazy process for just a very, very short week. I mean, it's hundreds of thousands of people, but it's a really short week. So I love that it's now going. All the gardens have to go on to a long-term home, so more people can also enjoy them around the country.
Wonderful. So people can head over to the end, well, they can head over to Chelsea and have a look at the garden when it's actually publicly displayed. That's starting 18th of May, isn't it? Chelsea kicks off, and they can obviously find you on social. So what are the social media channels they can find you on, Gwen?
So the two main ones for us are our Instagram and Facebook. We're also on LinkedIn as well for corporate partners and so on, which is great. We'd love more corporate partners. But Instagram, you'll find loads of content about the whole road to Chelsea, if you like. So there's quite a lot of behind the scenes footage, some fun videos. There's a whole dog theme going on with everybody involved in the garden somehow. Don't know how that happened, but there is. So yeah, go to our Instagram. It's just Plant Heritage, and you'll find us there.
And the website, if anybody wanted to catch up with what national collections are held and where, and whether they have an exciting collection to bring you to help with your drive to find more national collections, what's the website that people can look you up on? So
it's plantheritage.org.uk, and do have a look, because even if you don't want to have a national collection, you're welcome to become a member of Plant Heritage, and then you can get involved in our activities and support that wider conservation work. We also have a scheme called the Plant Guardian scheme, where you can look after just one rare plant or a few rare plants. So there's lots of different ways to get involved.
There's a little bit of something for everybody then as well.
Definitely.
Just if you wouldn't mind me asking, with regards to the list of the collections that are held, will your website also say whether any of those are actually open to the public, whether anybody, for instance, has a particular passion, and whether those are open at different times of year for people to actually go and visit, or, for instance, whether they're held at a public garden where people can go and visit? Is that kind of information also held on the website?
Definitely, and it's one of the conditions of having a national collection is they need to be open to the public in some form, and obviously we can be adaptable about that depending whether you live in a flat or a palace or a prison, whatever. But yes,
it's quite difficult to open a prison to the public.
I'm definitely looking forward to visiting that national collection. But yes, if you go to the website and search under national collections, you'll find the full list there with information. But you'll also look on the events page on the website. We've got lots of different things happening, and all the open days are listed there as well.
Wonderful. Gwen, it's been really, really lovely to talk to you and learn so much more about Plant Heritage and what you are up to. Best of luck for Chelsea. Make sure that you wear some really comfortable shoes, and you're going to be outside. So make sure that you've got some shelter, because if it decides to get hot, get big hat, sun cream, umbrella, because there's no escaping it, is it? It's an open space. So it does get very, very hot sometimes. So best of luck for Chelsea. I shall make sure that I come and see you guys. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today and telling everybody about Plant Heritage. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Thanks very much. See you at Chelsea.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Take good care now. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I can't thank Gwen enough for being so generous with her time and joining me on the podcast this week. I really look forward to seeing them at the Chelsea Flower Show over this coming week, and wish her and the team of everybody who has built the garden the best of luck when it comes to judging. I know everybody has worked incredibly hard. As Gwen mentioned during our conversation, if you have a large collection or wants to get involved with Plant Heritage in any way, shape or form, please do head over to their website and take a look at ways that you can get involved. I really hope that you enjoy the coverage of the Chelsea Flower Show, not only here on social media, but that will be all over the BBC over the next coming weeks. At home in the garden, May is a very, very busy time indeed. And now we have passed our last final frost date here in the UK, it's time to start hardening off and bringing out lots of our tender and softer plants that we've been dancing in and out of the greenhouse, cold frame, maybe the porch or the garage for the last few weeks. I'll be planting out my tender bedding plants, moving the hanging baskets outside, and finally getting planting with the dahlias that I've been growing on in the cold frame for several weeks. I've got a busy few weeks coming to you, as I've now relaunched my peony review season, and there's lots of fresh media coming at you every single day. As well as that, I've also launched a new climbing companion planting series, which you can watch at any time on Instagram, TikTok and or YouTube. There are also lots of amazing brand new varieties of rose to share with you over the next couple of weeks, and I'm very excited to share with you my first impressions of these exciting and wonderful new varieties, which I'm sure that you're going to want to have in your garden over the next few years. Next week, here on the Gardener Ben podcast, I get to talk to Kate, who uses the handle The Messy Allotmenteer on Instagram. She is off to BBC Gardeners World Live at the NEC on the 18th and 21st of June, where she's creating a garden called the Folklorians Garden. So join me next week when I get to catch up with Kate, talk to her about her design process and lots of amazing information about the beautiful garden that she's designed that will be showcased at Birmingham NEC in just a few weeks' time. The Gardener Ben podcast is brought to you proudly in association with Peterbilt's Roses, winner of 30 Chelsea Gold medals and creating timeless roses since 1968. Go online and shop at www.peterbiltsroses.com and make sure that you're following along on Instagram and on TikTok. Until next week, happy gardening.